Welcome to Yacht Crew Vlogs, where we tell the stories of those in the yachting industry. A behind-the-scenes look that discovers the individuals in the industry, their history, their passions, and what inspires them to do what they do. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Yacht Crew Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host, and I'm very pleased to welcome my next guest. She is a survivor of domestic violence or intimate partner violence in the yachting industry. How are you?
I'm doing well, all things considered.
A person by the name of Jack or James Magruder came to the attention of the yachting community as having a past and a conviction in regards to his treatment of his intimate partners, and it blew up. There seems to be 4 or 5 women that have been his victims, now survivors, in the past. And our goal today is to make sure that everybody knows who he is, that he does not get any more work, and he does not find any more victims. Can you tell us your story?
Okay, so I'd like to preface this by talking about how women don't just say, yeah, I want to get abused. You know, like, yes, sign me up. I'm just going to get into this relationship that's extremely sick. And yeah, like, I just feel like becoming a shell of a woman that I am right now. You know, like, it doesn't happen that way. And I think that we need to talk about that. The fact that people are always like, well, why don't you just leave? Or I don't understand how you got into this. Because there are some really intelligent women out there that have found themselves in the same hole. And sometimes it is just so dark that they can't get out on their own anymore. And I found myself in that place. So, in the beginning, when I met him, I was at the top of my game. I had been running 4 miles a day, starting up like 4 or sometimes 5 in the morning, watch the sunrise in Fort Lauderdale at the beach, and then, run back to my house. And then I was a real estate agent. So I was, cold calling my clients and creating appointments and doing all these things. Like, I was a powerhouse, and I felt it, like when I walked down the street, I felt good. And so like 2020 was going to be my year, like, I feel like everybody felt that way. And I was in this place in my life where relationships weren't really something that I needed or that I necessarily was looking for. But I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready for the dating pool. And so I downloaded just some dating apps, Bumble, Hinge, the usual. And that's where I found Jack. In the beginning, it was just like we went to a restaurant and we sat down across the table from each other, and it was like instant connection. He was the most kind, charismatic, and like the way that he would look at me was like I could just feel my heart explode with love. It was that kind of strong, powerful love, that instant bonding, the commitment, the throw all your worldly possessions out the window and just run away together kind of love. And that was how I became hooked. And I was addicted to that feeling that he gave me.
That would be the love bombing stage then.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it was quite a bomb. That was like an atomic bomb, right? So, and I had this secret on the first night of our date. I was just, I was sexually active with somebody who I considered a friend. And I took a Plan B pill, and it didn't work. And so I had just found out 2 days before my date with Jack that I was pregnant. And so it was nearing the end of our evening where we were walking on the beach together. And I was like, in my head, I was like, man, I'm falling in love with this guy, and it's only the first night. I need to tell him the truth. So I looked at him and I was like, Jack, I have something to tell you. And he was like, well, if you're pregnant, it's not mine. And it was just like, it was funny. I was like, well, I know it's not yours. And he was like, what? So it was almost like, the love bombing stage, but then giving him that part of that secret and trusting him with that because it's such a taboo, you know, abortions. I had the abortion scheduled already for a few days later rather. And he was there to, you know, take care of me and hold my hand. He wanted to take care of me. He wanted to make me feel safe and okay. And so that was just another layer of trust and bonding, that after an invasive procedure like that, he was there to take care of me. And, you know, so we went on to just like form this addictive kind of bond together. And we spoke of marriage probably a week into the relationship. And it was so real. You know, when I look back at those days, like I still consider those to be one of the happiest feelings that I ever had the opportunity to feel, even if it wasn't real. And like, that makes me so angry because I wanted it to be real. And I believed that I was in this real fantasy. I was. So we were going to a wedding. We went to a wedding and we visited his family in Georgia, and we still had that intoxicating love, you know. And he told me that he was the captain of a yacht, and, of course, on our first date. And he told me that he was going back to New Zealand in a week. So it was almost like that bait, you know, that the carrot on a stick. Like, I'm going to make you fall in love with me, and then I'm going to leave. And then when he told me that he was leaving, we spent every single day together because of it. A week went by. He told me that he canceled his flight for me and that he was going to stay. And that was obviously a lie. Little did I know he was on probation in the United States at that time and was unable to leave the country. And he did not have a home in New Zealand like he told me. He didn't have any of the things that he told me he had. But it all sounded so good at the time. And I felt so special that he stayed for me. And then there was this day that he was in class and actually passed out. And he fainted, or he had some kind of a seizure. And looking back on this, I would think that maybe that was a lie. But when I showed up, you know, in the heat of the moment, I was like ready to take care of him. There's another level. Like, that's another thing where not only he took care of me, now it was my turn to take care of him and to be that mothering caretaker that would, you know, nurse him back to life. And it was like my home became our safe haven. And this was around the time where I was like, I can't live without this man. I have to change my life. So I jumped in feet first, right? Like I took a course. I took the STCW course, got my certifications. Like, I was just so deep in that trance, you know. Right before that was when the red flags started to happen. I was halfway through my certification. It's only a week long. And he was out of class one day, so he was at my house. And I, of course, trusted him just to, you know, be at my house or whatever. And I was just in class taking notes. So I left my laptop, my iPad at home. And he knew all my passcodes already because I was just like an open book. And he read through really old text messages that I had on that. And he used those to make me feel like I wasn't committed enough for him. I wasn't, like, maybe I'm not the girl that he thought that I was.
How long was this into your relationship?
4 weeks, not even. Yeah. So it was just like the intensity of this relationship was so strong, and it all happened so quickly, but it felt like a lifetime. It felt like it just felt so rich and layered and beautiful. And then as soon as he was just like, I saw you talking to your friend John, and the way that you talk to him, I don't think that this is going to work out. So it's like pulling away the love, the affection, and all the things that made me feel so good and so safe and so wonderful was just like gone. And that scared the shit out of me. You know, like I was like, wow, I can't lose him. I can't lose him. So of course I reach out to my friend John and I'm like, look, I can't talk to you anymore. And I deleted, and I had to, of course, look through every single conversation that I've had with men and women and everybody in the past and make sure that nothing was out of place. Nothing looked suspicious or made me look like a bad person. So I'm starting to become paranoid in the way that I would just so lackadaisically talk to my friends. And now I'm starting to hide myself, right? And this is just very early in the relationship still.
He's already started to alienate your support structure.
Absolutely. And because like I had that fear of losing him, I would then wouldn't start new conversations with people. I wouldn't know how to tell them other than tell them I love my boyfriend so much. He's so amazing, etc., etc. So during the COVID lockdown, like the world slowed to a halt, but we stuck together like glue, and the red flags began to become more common. And, you know, there was this one time where I was wearing a robe in the morning, and he was like, yeah, I don't think that you should be wearing a robe. My mom used to wear robes, and he, at the time, had told me that his mother was dead, but also told me that his childhood was pretty intense, very abusive. So I was like, wow, I don't want to trigger him, you know? So I threw away my favorite robe. And then I looked like remind his mother in that one dress, my favorite dress. I threw my dress away. You have blonde hair like my mother. I think to myself, should I dye my hair? And there was a point that I actually dyed the bottom half of my hair just to see what I would look like as a brunette. You know, your body isn't lean enough like my ex-girlfriend. Your breasts are small. You know, my stepmom, she got a breast augmentation and she loves them now. Maybe you should consider it. Why can't you skateboard like my ex? You should learn. Why can't you kite surf like my ex? You know, sporty is sexy. Don't you want to be more sporty? Don't you want to be more sexy? I learned how to skateboard. I tried to take kite surfing lessons, but it's just ended up becoming a dead end. I got a boob job. Because I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin anymore. And I loved who I was before I met him. And the sickest thing about that breast augmentation is I paid for it myself, right? I put my down payment on it. And when I told him that I put it was $2,000 of a down payment, like non-refundable, right? And this was after weeks of bantering, like him making me feel like I should definitely get it, supporting me to get it, like, oh, she's gonna get a boob job, you know? And then as soon as I put the $2,000 down, he was like, why would you do that? I love you just the way that you are. And I was like, fuck, like, it's too late now. I'm just gonna fucking do it. I changed everything. He started going on deliveries, and, you know, whenever he would leave my site, I would have to be glued to my phone because if I didn't answer in time or if I didn't respond fast enough, I was mentally punished. You know, like, you found a new man, didn't you? And then the whole, you don't love me, like, you should find another boy, I'm just a stepping stone. And so it was like, not only was there that in-person mental abuse, but then when I was afraid for him to leave, I would fear when he would have to take a delivery or go away from me, because I'm like, no, please, I don't want to have to stare at this phone and get berated and have to go through that torture. But he had to. And so, like, I was, oh God, I dreaded every single time he left my sight.
How short of a time frame was this then to
That
this
was
point?
6 months.
So from history now, it sounds like he's escalated.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
He has perfected his craft. He has gotten away with it so often that the timeline is accelerated.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what scares me. So once he had gotten me in that trance, you know, for as long as he had, where I was afraid for him to leave, but I wanted to be known, I wanted to be loved, and I wanted us to stay together always. You know, then I started getting these messages from other women. They began to reach out to me, you know, that he had been spinning sweet, beautiful stories to them as well. And I was like, what? All the while he's sleeping next to me. You know, like, how could this happen? How could he even have time to do that? But he did. You know, like, it saw the text messages. They sent me screenshots and pictures of their conversations. And it started to make sense, because he didn't want me to be publicly connected to him or have any kind of social media connection. And whenever I brought it up, he'd be like, isn't it enough that my family and my friends know that you exist? Like, why are you making this such a big deal? And so, like, okay, I feel bad now. I feel bad for bringing it up, you know? So I was a total ghost. And I was so strongly in love and fear and obsession to be heard, to be known. And I felt like he made me this prisoner in my own life. And I was hungry for his affection, but I never got enough. And I was running on this, like, empty tank but promised the world and everything, marriage, family, like, traveling, all the beautiful things that you could bait somebody to want to have. And when I wanted to leave, because he would take away all of those things and make me fear that he would make me, it was like, I know this isn't real anymore. You are lying to me now. So I want to leave. And then if I ever felt that way, he would then put me back in that trance, right? Like, no, everything's going to be fine. We can move. We can do whatever we want, you know? And so I stayed. And I continued the cycle, the ups and the downs, the chaos, the withholding of love, and then just enough to keep you. He got this job in Mexico on a sailing yacht, and it was one of his first big captain's jobs. And I was like, oh my God, honey, I'm so happy for you. Like, encouraged him to go. And he was like, well, because I'm captain, you know, I will be able to hire you as my stewardess. And because you've already gotten this experience, you know, then you can come with me. And I was like, all right. So he packs his bags. And I was like, well, I'll see you in 2 weeks. And then 6 months went of complete, again, mental torture, right? You're not valuable enough. Like, I need a chef. Okay. So I booked an academy spot at Ashburton Cookery School out in Devon, England. And it just so happened to also be the one that Kirsten went to. So it's a pattern, right? But then after I had purchased the spot, he was like, no, I need you here now. You can't just go on this. You just can't go to this academy. And by the time you're done, like, I won't have a spot for you. I need somebody right now. And then I actually had to put my foot down and I was like, look, there's only four spots available per class, and I got the last spot, and it's only a month. He was angry that I did what he wanted me to do.
He was keeping you off balance so he could control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I go to the Chef's Academy, and we're still doing our long distance thing, and we're talking constantly. Absolutely, almost every minute of the day, he's got me on the phone. And because I didn't have my apartment anymore, and I was waiting for the Chef's Academy to start, I was living with my friends, and they were just like, they didn't understand the connection that I had with him. And at first they were just like, oh, he must be a nice guy, blah, 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 blah. But then I start, of course, telling them all these things that are happening behind the scenes. And I'm starting to cry more often. And I'm starting just to lose my mind, because all I want to do is just go to fucking Mexico and get on this fucking boat that I told him to go to. And he's holding me at an arm's length. Please come here, but you gotta stay away. At this point, I have purchased 5 or 6 plane tickets that I have then had to cancel. And then my friends were like, this is too much. You need to go. So I'm now alienating my own self from my friends who had supported me. And when I came back from the Chef's Academy, I had to find a job immediately, because I was like, okay, my deadline, if he doesn't let me on that boat by January, my birthday or whatever, I'm done. And obviously he started to escalate more. He would be like, if you don't come to Mexico or whatever, or if you leave me, if you break up with me, I'm going to kill myself. It started to become like that, and if I do kill myself, I'm going to tell my father that it's your fault that I killed myself. And it's just the mental manipulation was so embedded in me, and it went so deep into my psyche that I had no idea which way was up or down. Felt extremely alienated from everyone and everything in my life. I was like, I've had enough. I'm going to put all of his stuff in these boxes, and I'm going to drive all of his stuff back to Georgia, where his dad's house is. And of course, he had my location always on my phone, always watching me. So when I told him that I needed to end this, I'm going to drop off your stuff, because I don't know when you're going to be coming back or when we're going to actually make this happen. So I'm going to bring your stuff to your dad's house. And he absolutely lost his mind over the phone. If you don't turn around right now, all of these, and I was halfway to Georgia, and his dad, I was telling his dad, okay, I'm just going to drop this stuff off. And he's like, yeah, no worries. It's all okay. Everything's roses and daisies. His dad is so sweet and so almost naive to it all, and he's just so chill. I was, it made me feel like everything was fine. Okay, I'm just going to drop this off and it's going to be okay. And then meanwhile, I'm pulled over on the side of the highway, crying my eyes out, because my dad is now involved. My parents are now involved, and they're like, you need to get rid of this stuff. You need to get rid of him. He is taking your life away slowly. And I'm like, I never heard my dad so enthusiastically passionate and angry about how Jack had treated me and how he had treated his daughter, right? That he was he screamed, and he was like, you need to keep going to Georgia and drop off that shit. You are so in love with him that you will do anything for him. And I was just I was so lost. So I did carry on. I finally did. I didn't listen to Jack. I took my location off and I dropped that shit off. I was back in Florida the next day. And then I got a new job. And I was like, well, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait until you think the time is right for me to come to Mexico. And maybe a week into my new job, loved it. The captain was awesome. We got along really well. And I was the chef stew, and we were having a blast. And then Jack was like, oh, I finally have an opening.
Basically, what he saw was that you had started to stand on your own 2 feet again. You had
Right.
gotten a job, you were economically sound, safe,
Right.
you could look after yourself, you were probably enjoying yourself. And he could
Yeah.
hear that, he could feel it, he could see it. Now is time to step in and take that away, because
Yes.
that doesn't suit his narrative.
Exactly. And this was like the most disgusting part, because it was the most disgusting part of the long distance relationship that we had for that point in our relationship, because I was like, okay, I'll get this job. I'll take this job on the boat that he was on. And I'm going to just have to tell my new captain that I've decided to take this other position. Thank you for the opportunity. And then, even though I had mentioned to the captain that I was in this relationship with somebody who wasn't so healthy for me. So he was like, I don't understand. Like, why are you taking this position that he's offering you now? And I was like, I just got to do it. So that night, I packed all my shit that has been reduced to two duffel bags now in my life. And I had the plane ticket booked. I went to a hotel room to have everything like ready to go so I could leave. And then he was like, I don't know if it's the right time for us. I don't know. I think maybe you should just come for a visit. What? A visit? I just quit my job. That's the second job that I quit. Matter of fact, the third, if we're considering my previous life. And I was livid. I was so angry. And I was so lost because, all right, my job's gone. I don't have a home. All I have is a bicycle and a hotel room, and a seedy one at that, because I was cheap, and I only thought it was going to be for a night. So I'm stuck and I'm here. I am groveling at my captain's feet, and I say, please take me back. I am so, so sorry I did that. I'm so sorry. I know I have to earn your trust back again. And so he took me back, and I started working again, but I was just like, I was done with Jack. I was done, like my parents got involved. They messaged him. They said, do not ever contact her again, and I blocked him on everything. I was like, empowered. This is it. This is me becoming my own independent woman again. I'm done with this fucking mental manipulation, and like being stuck. I'm done being stuck. So about a month, maybe a month and a half went by, and I found myself in like trying to replace that feeling, wanting to have some kind of connection with somebody, because I was in this like 6-month long distance, which means I had nobody else. So I was, of course, like I wanted to look into maybe meeting somebody who was nice for a change. And I did. I met a really nice person who was the exact opposite of Jack. Like I looked for somebody who was so angelic and who could be so kind that there was absolutely no way I could go wrong here, And then I was like, I kind of got bored, because the chaos wasn't there. And that was what I was comfortable in after all of that. I just wanted to get out and away from the situation entirely, because I didn't know who I was anymore. And he was like, well, I'm looking to purchase a house in Montana. And I was like, oh, this is a good opportunity for me to just turn over a new leaf. And so I got a job out there, and I didn't have much personal belongings. So it's not like it was hard for me to move, So I just packed up and went. And then Jack found me on Venmo. He like Venmo messaged me that I owed him money. And it stirred up this thing inside of me, like this, and I started to obsess. And it turns out that I had blocked him on WhatsApp with my phone number, but if he had like a different phone number, there was some way that he had reached out to me, and he saw that my profile picture was different. It was with this new guy. And then he started doing the love bombing again, and I was just enough out of it that I was like, okay, maybe this is real, like maybe we could try again. So broke up with the other guy, quit my job, and finally flew to Mexico. And it was like everything was good. Everything was good for maybe a few weeks. And then he would just not let go of the person that I was seeing for that little bit of time. He made me message him and tell him that I didn't love him and that I loved Jack more, and that he was just a mistake. And he needed to know because you know, Jack, he needed to know that Jack was better. I literally had to say, Jack is better than you. So like, he wanted me to hurt somebody who had absolutely nothing to do with this. And that was heart-wrenching. So I see these photographs in one of his binders, and it was like, you know, those pictures that you take at weddings where it's like those little like those long ones.
Yeah.
And it was with this girl. I was like, oh, who's that? I was like, oh, that's so and so. She's just my friend. While you were away with your new boy, I was invited to a wedding, so I had to take somebody. And I was like, all right, okay. So that made me feel kind of bad. And then I started seeing like women's clothes, or like a bracelet here and there, or a bag of something, and maybe a hat. And I'm like, whose is this? And he said, oh, that was hers. That was so-and-so. She, you know, she worked on the boat for us when you weren't around because you were with your new boy. And, you know, you couldn't come. You didn't come. You didn't believe me. And that made me feel even worse, right? And then more and more came to the surface, and I find that this girl was living with him for all of that time that I was away from him. Like literally probably the first week into it, she had already moved in, and he spun the same shit to her that he had started with me in Fort Lauderdale. So there was a significant overlap. And every single time he would talk to me, I was his cousin. And every single time he would talk to her, she was his friend. But meanwhile, whenever I would get upset or we would have an argument, he would tell me how he would fuck her daily, and it was so good. And it was, for the most part, it was mostly swept under the rug. You know, the abuse wasn't so heightened because we were surrounded by our coworkers. You know, we had our mate and we had our deckhand.
Was this girl also in yachting?
She was a scuba instructor.
Okay.
She's decided she doesn't want to be part of any of this. Like she's completely dissociated herself, blocked everything and everyone within like a 100-mile radius, just so she can stay away from his toxicity, right? And I went to go get my scuba certification, of course, because I need my scuba certification, because how could you not? How could you not? That's how it works, right? He's molding me into this person that he wanted me to be. So of course I go get my scuba certification. I'm in fucking Cabo. It's beautiful. So I go. And these guys, they're like, in the Panga, the boat that they were teaching me how to scuba in, like, wow, you know, you remind us of somebody. And I'm like, who? And they said her name. And I was like, oh, really? Well, maybe you could tell me a thing or two about it. And it's like all of these things started coming together. And it was just like, it made me angry, but I still stayed because I've already given up everything. I've managed to get my parents back on his side and my side so they can believe that he has changed. We're okay. Everybody is happy. And my friends, of course, have still written me off. You know, like my friends think that I'm completely damaged goods. There is no way that I can get back to that in their trust. And I sacrificed that, right? Like I made that sacrifice. And because I made that sacrifice, I did not want to I worked so hard for this relationship to work. And I am not willing to lose that mask, you know, like this was one of the biggest sacrifices of my life, and I'm going to make it work. You know, at what cost? It was at an astronomical cost. So he teaches me how to motorcycle. He teaches me how to drive a manual while I'm there. And like, obviously he's not the most graceful person when he teaches me things. He just tells me to do certain things. And if I can't do it, then I'm not good enough, right? So like, I have to keep becoming more adventurous, better. And then surfing was the next hurdle, right? So he's surfing and he's starting to get pretty good at it. And I'm like scared, like I'm starting to get panic attacks because of how he molded my brain to feel fear. And as I'm like paddling out through these fucking massive waves, like they're pretty big, and I don't know how to duck dive or how to, get under them. So like by the time I'm out there, I'm like I've got this woof, I'm so scared. And then if I can't get it right away, and if it's frustrating me, and he looks at me, he's like, you're not having fun. Like, I should just put you on a fucking plane and get you out of here. And meanwhile, I can't tell the mate or the deckhand any of this. So I'll just cry silently on the beach and then force myself to get back up and out there. The drinking started to become more of a thing. And in general, if he drank heavily, he told me that he would turn into a monster, that he can't have hard alcohol. And so we would try to avoid that. But of course, he didn't avoid it. He would just become unhinged. He would drive aggressively with me in the car if he got angry about something. And it's like little things that he got angry about, So we would be driving down busy streets and he would just be flooring it, weaving in and out of traffic just to get me scared. And that wasn't the first time, when he tried to get me to come to Mexico with him. There was a portion in that storyline that I forgot to mention. Right before I quit my job with that captain I liked, he flew in to Fort Lauderdale and was trying to like get me back. And I told him that I wasn't really sure, and that I wasn't sure. And he did not like that. He did not like that I didn't really want to stick around with him, and that I wasn't sure I should quit my job again. And then he got so angry that he had driven all this way just for me. And he started aggressively driving on 95 in Fort Lauderdale, which is a very hectic highway. And he pulls off the exit. He rips his shirt off and he's like punching the steering wheel and it's bleeding all over the place and it's causing this huge scene, and just leaves me at the side of the road. Like, not side, leaves me in the traffic lane. And so I have to go find him, So it's these episodes of anger and they're so dramatic, I feel like, what am I to do here? I need to go after him. I need to make him feel better. I need to de-escalate this situation. By the time that we were in Mexico and all of these things were starting to build up, I felt like I wasn't living my life anymore. I was living this thing that it just turned into, I don't even know. Who the fuck was I?
It was completely opposite of who the person was that you started out as. He took this amazingly successful, talented, beautiful, intelligent young woman that was making her way in the world and isolated her and made her think she was crazy, made her think that she needed him, and alienated her from absolutely everything in her life that she ever knew. And that's where he wanted you.
Yeah. I didn't really know who I was anymore. And, so I was just kind of staying out of pride and ego and just trying to keep this glass house, from kind of crumbling down and becoming broken. And
it isn't just you. It is part of the entire process that people don't understand. It's a breakdown of the individual. It's a breakdown of everything that you are, who you are. It is an alienation of you from your support structures, your systems, the life that you had. And you get to the point where if you try to leave, you actually do, and then there's nothing there for you. So you just go back to what you know and what's easiest, because it's better than being alone.
So true. It's like, the scorpion and the frog, like the frog and the scorpion are trying to cross some kind of river together. And the frog says to the scorpion, well, no, the scorpion says, I mean, I can't swim, so can I please just jump on your back and get across? And the frog says, well, no, you're going to sting me. How do I know that you're not going to kill me? And the scorpion says, well, I mean, we must cross this river, so why would I kill you? And so the frog, of course, lets the scorpion onto his back, and then they get across, and the scorpion then stings him. The frog says, well, why did you sting me? And the scorpion just says, well, that's how I am. That's who I am. And that's how I felt. I felt like Jack was just the scorpion, and I was just, I believed everything that he wanted me to believe over and over again, but still was completely let down. So by the time we were pretty far into living together on, working on the boat together in Mexico, I think there was something that upset me that he had said, of course. And I was just like, you know what, this is probably a handful of times now that I want to leave. I'm done. Packing my bags, calling my parents, I'm leaving. Oh, we're so happy. We're so glad. Oh, we love you. Please come home. Okay. So I had everything ready to go. And then he comes back and he curls up into a ball and wants to die. And slowly, he just brings me back in, and I'm just like, okay, like maybe I don't know why I think this anymore, but maybe it'll change. Maybe it'll get better. That very night that I had to really think about what's going to happen, he and I met up I went out on my own. I got a couple of drinks in my system, and because I was just angry, and then he and I met up at a bar, and he had also been drinking pretty heavily. And then he has me get on his motorcycle, and we head back, and he is ripping around angry at me and angry at the world. And obviously we're not wearing helmets or anything. So it's scary. It's scary when I put my life in his hands all the time, but I just believe that he's not going to hurt me. So he had gotten physical with me at that point. It's a bit blurry because I was intoxicated that time. And he pushed me into the grass. That's all I really remember. And that was the first time that there was a physical altercation. And it might have been 3 months later that we had gotten a job together on a new sailing yacht. We had said goodbye to the other one, and the team had kind of disbanded. And Jack and I started fresh in Newport, Rhode Island, stateside. And it just so happened that boat caught on fire. If you heard about it, there was a Newport shipyard fire, and the sailing yacht that caught fire next to it was just a tragedy because it was such a beautiful vessel, and we had no way to make it stop because it was just sitting in the cradle, and just flash point caught fire. So when the fact that Jack had quit his job that he loved so much in Mexico, and that he took so we could be together and grow together, and because it was my fault that he quit this job and started on a vessel that no longer existed, he got angry. And I went to go support him at a bar, and a couple of his new sailor bar friends had been giving him shots of alcohol. And I was like, Jack, don't you think is that really a good idea? You always tell me that it's not such a good idea. But he did it anyway. And I was like, fuck, I need to get the car around and bring him home. So I left him at the bar, and I went to go find the car, and I couldn't find the car fast enough. He was really upset that I couldn't find the car fast enough. I was in a brand new city. I was laughing about it. I was like, just relax, honey. I'll find the car and I'll get to you. And he's just like, send me your location right now. And I was like, geez, all right. So I did. And I was like, I'm on my way to you. And as soon as he got in the car, he grabbed my skull and he smashed me into the side of the car. And then he put his hands around my neck and he said, I will kill you. And he punched me in the face and he held his hand around my neck and he told me repeatedly that he would kill me. And at first I was just like, how the fuck how did he just do that to me? I got upset. I got angry. I didn't get scared. I actually responded in a way where I got up and out of the car and I was like, and I screamed in the middle of the street. And I was like, you hit me. How could you do that to me? How could you struck me? Somebody that loves you so much. How could you do that to me? I'm a fucking victim of assault now. And it was almost like it was all bubbling up inside of me. And I finally had evidence, because my mouth was bleeding. And I took a picture immediately and walked off. And that was an ugly night. That was a very ugly night. But I just managed to somehow come around and sleep in the same bed with him that night. And then he got me pregnant. And we had to leave Newport, obviously, because there's no boat, no crew house anymore. So we found a job down in Cape Canaveral on an even bigger sailing yacht. We didn't like this sailing yacht job. The boat was under a lot of construction and he wasn't very happy with the program. So we found another opportunity to take a job together on another sailing yacht in the United Kingdom. And we took it. We took the position. It was another turning point in our relationship. Okay, starting fresh. Our friends and our family were aware of our new job. They were all supporting us. He was hanging out with my mom and my dad before we left, and vice versa. I got to spend more time with him and his family. And of course, none of them know what's going on behind the scenes, And so, I'm just becoming a better and better actress. I'm becoming such a good actress that I'm fooling myself. That he will inevitably do it again. But I was like, yeah, it's just a fluke. It's a one-time thing. It's all those things in your brain that are like, there's got to be an explanation to this. He's just not gonna, we just can't have him drinking anymore. Or we just can't put him under any kind of stress whatsoever. Let's just fucking pad the entire life that we have together. Let's just make this a nice, soft bubble.
If everything is perfect, this will be too.
Right. So we go to the United Kingdom and we meet our new employers, and it's awesome. Really cool program, lovely people. We're getting along so well. I'm finally starting to connect with women, and because in all of this, I had been completely isolated from women. Obviously, because if I start to band together with women, maybe I'll say something, maybe I'll let something slip, especially if I have a couple of drinks and I just want to be honest. So anyway, I'm starting to form really good friendships, and so is he, and it's like everything is wonderful. And then I think it's almost like it's like self-sabotage, so I need to ruin this. I need to make this explode. So he looks through my laptop again, and he found a photograph of that ex that I had forgotten to delete. He gets angry. It's that whole thing, everything was really good up until I found this out. When in reality, it wasn't that great, we're just existing at this point. And I'm just trying to survive by making sure that I don't do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing, or am, suspicious in any way to make him look bad. And then the very next day, he was in the shipyard, and I was focusing and practicing some new recipes, and he left his laptop behind. So I'm thinking to myself, it's been 2 years that we've been together. I think it's finally time for me to see what's behind the curtain. So I opened up his laptop and I entered the code that I know it was going to open, and it just so happened to open. I just wanted to see the photographs that were in there. And of course, there were sexual photographs of me, but also peppered in between the timeline were other women. And that upset me, because obviously, who wouldn't be upset by that? So I messaged him and I said, Jack, honey, I think we just need to have a talk. And that was a big red flag for him to jump into action. So he got in the car and he sped to the crew house without telling me that he was on his way. And Like, I was just trying to cool off at this point, so I went to go take a shower. He ripped me out of the shower and dragged me into the bedroom and held me down. And I'm really surprised he didn't break my ribs, you know, because I feel so bad. These other girls, their ribs were fractured and broken, but he was just on me at a better angle. I guess I was lucky that way, you know. So he again held me down and made sure I didn't scream, because our very next door neighbors were the people that we were working with. So he holds me down and he winds up his fist and he stops it right in front of me, because he didn't want to have to hit me that time, but he had done just as much damage by choking me and then putting his fingers in my eyes. Like, it was just, why? So I'm absolutely terrified. I can't breathe. And he was like, if you ever look through my shit again, I will kill you. I will kill you no more. My name, insert name here. And that scared the shit out of me again. And I was just more and more scared. And how can I be happy? You know, how can I be myself around my new coworkers and the people that I had grown to love already? So I just had to put on an even better show. And, you know, sometimes, because the meat lived with us, he had to be really careful at how he would grab my arms every now and then. Or, you know, if I didn't want to have a conversation that I knew was not going to end well, and he didn't want me to walk away from him, he would pull me and squeeze me. And I had to be really quiet because our mate was right next door.
Well, and you never wanted to create the scene, did you? If it happened in public, or it happened in the galley, for example, you didn't want to create the scene. So
yeah. So I got really very skilled at hiding it. And there was this little voice inside of my head that was just screaming, just, how can we make it stop? I didn't really know how to go about it, but I knew that I had to formulate some kind of plan to either run away or get him fired or something. So, like, you know, the wheels are turning in my head, and I'm like, I'm angry and I'm more of a recluse, and people can see that I've physically changed and I'm incapable of having the same enthusiasm that I once did, but I didn't really know how else to go on. So I don't know. It was almost like I had to separate myself into two different people. I feel like my personality had to cleave and to be able to survive. I think that was just a way that I could defend myself from myself, you know, because I became my own enemy in staying.
What was the thing that just finally made you say, that's it, I'm done, I can't?
There wasn't. That's the funny thing. I was so lost that there was this ice pilot who was going to join us on our next journey. And he could tell how Jack looked at me and talked to me that something was wrong. And this is the most serendipitous thing. This is a cosmic, to me, an intervention, because I couldn't do it myself. So he reaches out to his friend and he's like, "Yeah, do you know the new captain of this boat? You know, it just so happens that person is the boyfriend of one of his ex-victims, ex-survivors." So they look him up and they're like, "Oh my God, she needs to get out now. She is in a lot of danger." And so my relief captain had called me and pulled me aside, and I just thought it was going to be like a normal meeting about our next trip, but it just so happened that we sat down and he was like, "I need you to be honest with me, you know, is Jack hurting you?" And I'm like, wow, fuck, like, it's over. I can finally be honest. And I'm not the one that's starting it. So I admitted to everything. I told him everything that was going on, and he started to cry. He was like, "I'm so sorry." And he was like, "I want you to know that this is your Like, you're off the hook. And we're going to make this better for you. And this is, I'm going to come congratulating you that this is your first day that you're able to be yourself again. And I was just like so overwhelmed, you know. And then I had to pull myself together, like, wow, he knows, and now they're starting to know, and they're creating this plan of how to remove him from the situation. And so they put me in this place in a different city to hide me, and they had me believing that I was going on a cooking course. So I was super stoked, and I was telling Jack, like, I can't wait, I'm so excited that I get to go on this cooking course. And then of course halfway into it, I'm driving, and my relief captain is like, yeah, I had to lie to you. We're just putting you in a hotel so you can stay safe while we're trying to figure this out. So we came up with the plan to say that we had just run a simple background check and that he didn't check out, obviously, because of that article. So that was a really good scapegoat to get him out. And meanwhile, as soon as our employer canned him and got his ass to get on a train and go away, I was walking into the police station to make my statement, finally. It was interesting. It was felt very like James Bond, you know, like I was in this hotel, and then I drove over to this hotel and I waited, and it was just like, it was perfectly planned. And that is how I got out. So I made my statement, and then the police tried to find him and question him at the location that I had given them, because he was, of course, writhing around and thrashing around trying to figure out what the fuck just happened. And I knew where he was going and had a confirmed location. So I sent the police there, and they missed him by maybe 20 minutes. So he had fled, went somewhere out in the middle of London, and then took off.
So he is effectively charged in England?
Yes.
Okay.
But if he ever comes onto England soil again, he will be flagged at the border or at TSA, however he comes in, and he'll be brought in for questioning.
And what is he charged with there? What is the
physical assault? More than just physical assault, because of the way that I told them what happened. It seemed like it checked off a lot of boxes for their version of domestic abuse. So yeah, but he got away, you know, and that's so frustrating. Again, it's so fucked up, you know. But
and how long has that been now?
It's been 4 months.
4 months.
Yeah.
And he's already managed to get himself into trouble elsewhere.
Yeah.
Have you started to find out who you are yet?
Yes, I have. And I think it's beautiful. You know, the journey in recovery has been very interesting, because in the beginning, I was just like this ball of tears, just crying, and I couldn't stop fucking crying. And I was talking to some of my coworkers, and they were like, "Man, you can't remember that conversation that we had? Like, you told me this. Don't you remember this?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't remember any of that." And I think what I call trauma brain has happened to me. My brain has created this defense mechanism in order to protect myself from some of the things and the details that I haven't gone into detail that he has said to me. My brain is just like, no, we're gonna erase that whole day for you. And sometimes to this day, I still don't have those memories back. I don't have those memories of discussions that I've had, or certain days, or certain things that I did. You know, that's really fascinating to me. But other than that, I didn't have much time to recover, because as soon as he was let go, we had to prepare for a 40-day charter and then deliver the boat from here from the United Kingdom to a more northern place quite northern, very cold. And yeah, so I just had to put myself into work. So I've effectively been able to take my trauma and my domestic abuse, and I've put it into a box. And I put a nice, lovely ribbon on top of it. And I told myself not to open it until it's ready, until it's time. So I still haven't done that yet.
Are you afraid of what you may find when you unpack that box?
Yes, I'm afraid that, my biggest fear is that my brain is damaged in a way that I won't be able to love somebody the way that I loved Jack. That he ruined it for me. I fear that he ruined that tenderness that I once had, and we'll call it naivety. I feel a bit jaded. I feel that my heart automatically will shut down. But that you never know. I don't know. I could be stronger than I think I am. But I do have to mention this thing about him, because I think after everything that you are going to be hearing and that you have heard with our stories, it paints him to be a villain, right? And this saying, hurt people, comes into my mind a lot, because as a victim of childhood abuse for Jack, his brain had to create its own defense mechanisms, right? And I think it has to do with the childhood trauma, abuse, and the lack of support by his family to see it for what it was, turned him into the kind of person that he is today. Because our brains, just like mine, had its own way of defending itself. His had evolved and morphed into something else, And at the end of the day, he's charming and he makes himself lovable. But I think that even though there's a lot of malevolence and anger and darkness inside, I truly believe that he wants to just be that charismatic, lovable person. I can't villainize him to a point where it's saying to the world that he's a monster, because
I have to say something at this stage. You've been out of this relationship for 4 months. What you may find as time goes on is that a true relationship starts small and as a friendship. And that amazing feeling that you got within the first 24 hours, when it's real, that grows over time. And in regards to this man victimizing other people as a result of childhood trauma, he's not the only person ever in the world to experience child.
You're right.
We have a choice. And I truly think that if we give them that out, they will use it.
Yeah.
Always. There is no out. Period. There is no excuse. Period. You are now a victim of domestic violence. Do you think that you were going to go out there and find someone to victimize yourself in order to feel better?
No. Because I'm an empathetic person.
But that's an excuse, isn't it? You would not do that. You know you will not do that. So do not give him that out. Do not allow him that out. Period.
Fine, I know. I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to see the good. I try to see the good in everybody.
And that's okay, because most people are worth it.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with me, because human beings at their core are meant, I believe that we're meant to just love people. I think that we're meant to receive and give love. I think that is the magic, the thing that separates us from ape in man, the true affection and altruism of what it feels like to truly be in love. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with me for loving someone even like that.
there's nothing wrong with you in the slightest. And, you know, that's where I think a lot of people get into the victim blaming. Is they don't understand. There is nothing wrong with you. You were taken advantage of. You accepted at face value what you were told, what you felt, how you were made to feel. And now you move on.
Yeah.
But you're not to fault. You coming forward and telling your story, it will help many women out there in the yachting industry. It happens more often than any of us care to talk about. We as a society have been shaped to look the other way, to not call attention to the signs. That needs to change. In yachting, there is this club type atmosphere that, you know, you may see somebody doing something that you don't like, but oh, we won't speak about that.
Yeah.
When you saw this whole thing blow up, the men were going crazy. They were going to hunt him down. They were going to toss him off the boat. I don't know. I mean, some of the things were just like, they were coming up with pretty spectacular ways to punish him. In all actuality, it was pretty phenomenal. But that being said, if one of their friends is walking down the street and says, look at her ass, or if they go to a yacht show and a company, a massive, you know, yachting company has hired 10 girls to dress in the shortest skirts and the largest breasts, and they're handing out champagne, they're the first on their phone saying, hey, dude, come on over. Guess what's going on at this place, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that inequality that allows it to continue.
Right.
And that's where it has to stop. If you're one of those men that says, not my sister, not my mother, not my wife, not my daughter, then call out the other men for perpetuating that type of patriarchal society.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I do want to mention another part of the story when I had recently gotten that first job as a stewardess. And Jack and I had decided to do this job together, right? The management company that our boat had just so happened to run a background check. And I think it was Fraser. But yeah, they actually went ahead and they ran a background check. And my captain at the time was like, you should probably look at this article that we found. And that was Kirsten's article, who I hadn't reached out to at the time or yet. And I really wish, like, the reason that I'm bringing this up is, okay, so two things that could branch off is when I was speaking, when I had reached out to his most recent ex, who I had been living in her shadow the whole time, the one who I was trying to be like. And she was telling me to watch out, you know, warning me that he had broken her ribs. And, you know, so like all of these things, these red flags were there, but I still chose to avoid them and not look at them. And I chose to believe his side instead, because he would always come up with a far-fetched story to make it sound okay, or like it wasn't his fault. And then, but the other thing that I really want to mention with the background check thing is like, why aren't we doing that? Why isn't everybody doing that? That should just be common. We work with children. We work with high profile individuals. Why don't we run background checks? Why don't we do drug testing? You know, like, this is a normal thing that other jobs do.
Yeah.
Simple, but we leave it up to the owner to have the last say and choice. And by the time they go through all of this shit with the crew placement specialists and, you know, yada, you're just like, this guy, this girl, they seem fine. You know, if they've been vetted this far through the system and they've got all their certificates and they've been speaking to us and we've been interviewing, form this bond and trust and believe that, you know, that person is who they say that they are and they're safe.
So the first charge was in 2018. That was the first incident where he was charged and convicted. And so from 2018 to 2022, we are talking 4 years. That's it. 4 years.
Yep.
He has managed to travel the globe while working in yachting and having this on his record. Literally every single boat that he has worked on since 2018 did not do their due diligence, did not do their job, and there is something wrong with that picture.
Correct. And all you got to do is just look up his full name on Google, which I didn't even know his full name in the beginning of our relationship. You know, I thought he was Jack.
But this is yacht management company's job.
It's their job.
They get paid, and crew placement, they get paid to place people on a yacht. That is their sole job.
Right.
So
like, this is fundamental.
That means, yes, you are putting them on, you know, literally a floating prison in the middle of an ocean with X amount of people on that floating prison. You need to make sure that you're not hiring a murderer.
Right. Right.
So, you know, this really needs to make waves around the industry. I actually would be very interested to find out the companies that have found him employment in the last 4 years and ask them why.
Yeah.
You know, I think that they need to, not that they need to lose their business or anything like that, but explain to us why. And explain how now you will implement changes within your management structure to make sure going forward from 2022, it never happens again. I mean, yes, of course, sometimes things slip through cracks. People are pretty good at changing names or getting new identities. We are living in a digital age, but there needs to be a change in practices, and I'd be interested to see how they're going to implement that going forward.
Oh, great. You know, because this is like, Jack is just one in hundreds of thousands of individuals who do the things that he does.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's not just about giving him his just desserts. Like, it's about this industry as a whole. We need to make it more safe, and we just need to make it a better place to live and work, because we don't just work, we live with who we work with. We work where we live. This is like so important for us to be able to take care of the people that we work for, you know, and for them in general to know that they're in good hands.
Well, they say that domestic violence really does come down to gender inequality. And that, I think, just for the betterment of society, the betterment of the industry, that there needs to be equality straight across the face of the board. And from that place of equality, the decisions that are made are different.
Yeah. And I hope we make waves, you know, I hope that we make a change.
I agree. I want to say thank you so much for having the courage to tell your story. It's very much appreciated.
Of course.
And when you take the time to unpack your package and see what is inside, don't be hard on yourself, because nothing is your fault.
Thank you.
And don't be afraid to reach out, because you have an entire community that is behind you. I will send you some contacts that you can reach out to that have, you know, some great experience in things like this, and some places to go for resources, etc.
Wonderful. I've been on edge lately, because after this thing came into light on that Facebook page, I was actually in a really good place in my recovery at that point. I had just gone on a little vacation. I did some traveling by myself. I was starting to create this strong foundation of just who I am as a person. And I was like feeling good. You know, we had a very short little trip to do, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to nail this. Like, we're going to have a good time. And then I'm going to go on holiday. It's going to be great. Well, that night, right before our little trip and before my boss was going to come on board, was when this thing was posted, and it completely rattled me, completely disturbed me, because days before that, I kept saying to my friends, my mates, like, I can't help but think about the next girl. I can't stop thinking about the next girl. I wonder what she's doing. I wonder who she is. I wonder where he is. And then, just like out of nowhere, my intuition was just going off, like my brainstem just wouldn't stop firing that question. And suddenly this pops up on Facebook. And then I was like, wow, shit, like, you have to respond. You can't just be this silent victim and not validate what is being said. And so I did. And then everybody starts bombarding us, and then we're banding together, and we're starting to form this little conversation as survivors together. And it's like, we're gaining a lot of traction here. Wow, like, a lot of people are seeing this. So we're just like, we're feeling very empowered. And I think that was wonderful in the beginning. But, just like something that is like, it's almost like the flame that burns too hot in the beginning, yep, and it goes out really fast. Yep. So I'm experiencing the come down of that, because, not much has actually transpired. Not much is really going to get better. And the hype is gone. And now I'm left with having to, just turn over all of these things in my head again. Like,
when we make that decision to leave, and everybody feels like all the do-gooders in the world, right? They're all like, oh my God, we're so there for you. We're going to be like totally doing everything we can for you. Yeah. And, whatever you need, we're there. And then when you actually need them, after the craziness of the first little bit is over, there's no one there. 3 years down the road, nobody wants to hear about it. Get over it.
Right? How do you go back to normalcy after that?
You don't.
That's the fucked up part, is like, the people who I have remained very strong friends with are the ones who have also been affected by him, because it's real, because we have a shared trauma bond in a way. But
you have an understanding without judgment.
Absolutely. And it's so hard to find that. So it's almost like, alcoholics, recovering alcoholics, they come together in meetings because they understand one another. Okay. And now I feel like I have joined this fucking club that I didn't want to be a part of. I don't want to be in this club, but I'm here. And now it's time, to connect with these other women and to hold each other's hands and walk through the pain, so I can get stronger, and I can get back to, maybe not back to who I was, but a stronger version of myself, so I don't fall in to the victim mentality, and I can be able to live my life normally and just keep giving back to the world and love people again. That's what I want.
I want to say thank you for sharing your story with us today. It's very much appreciated.
Of course. It's my pleasure.
One thing I have to say to the yachting community as a whole, the reaction that I saw from even some of the most upstanding men in the industry that I know would go to the bat for any woman anywhere, when this story first broke, were unable to back the story. And then another woman came forward, and then another woman came forward, and then another woman. 5 women now have come forward into regards to this one individual. He has been charged, I do believe, 3 times. And he also has 1 conviction. Even after the overwhelming evidence, some of these men still didn't feel comfortable with exposing this predator. And I think that is the problem. That is a big problem. If one woman comes to you and says, this is what I'm experiencing, then it is your due diligence to look into it, to investigate it. if 2 women come forward, if 3 women come forward, and it becomes obvious that there's an issue, then not only is somebody not doing their job within the industry, but the industry itself is not doing what they need to do for their fellow crew members, for those that they call friends within the industry. They're just not doing things right, and that needs to change. So thank you. And maybe through all these stories, we'll be able to make that change.
I hope so.
You've been watching another edition of Yacht Crew Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I have been your host. We'll see you again next time.